You're with Julian on the Brown Note and the dangerous religiosity of Scott Morrison. If you think that I just bag him because he's religious, later on this show I will be promoting Christina Keneally as the person I think should lead Australia. And she is a deeply religious person. And the difference is, she doesn't talk the talk, she walks the walk. The opposite of what Scott Morrison does. She's the one who went and visited the family in detention on Christmas Island. He's the one that put them there. Now, we rarely see the truth about Scott Morrison's religion, and it's very, very different to what we've been used to in Australia. It is the burgeoning evangelical scene. It's not the traditional Catholic Anglican scene. They are much more secretive in their aims and the way they do business, and they do a lot of business. They've spread like wildfire due to their ability to earn money, keep that money tax-free, and to use the media to promote themselves through music and radio and television, and a lot of high-profile connections. Brian Houston, the leader of Hillsong, Australia's biggest evangelical church, was in John Howard's office in this country. Then he was in Donald Trump's office, and then he was in Scott Morrison's office, and he's called by Scott Morrison his mentor. Despite some very shady goings on in recent times. Pentecostalism itself is a modern variant of Christianity, probably only 100 years old, which is just over, which is often mistrusted by people in other denominations. They do not speak for all Christians at all. But we got a good insight into what goes on in Scott Morrison's private time with footage that was released by the Rationalist Network, I think, of Scott Morrison attending a national conference of Christian churches to help him help Australia, while revealing his belief that he and his wife Jenny have been called upon to do God's work. In video that emerged of the Prime Minister speaking at the Australian Christian Churches Conference in the Gold Coast last week, Morrison also revealed that he had sought a sign from God while on the 2019 election campaign. Shall we hear a bit of what he had to say?
That's not my job, that's yours. There's some threats to this that I want to share with you. There is a fashion these days to not think of Australians as individuals. There is, particularly I think amongst our young people, and I worry about this. People think of themselves, it's called identity politics. They think of themselves by the things they can describe and collect them with others. These are important things. One's ancestry, one's gender, where one's from. If you're from the Shire, well, that's great. You're starting ahead of everybody else.
Scott Morrison there making identity politics whilst complaining about identity politics. No one has yelled identity politics or the culture war more than the hard right Christians in the Liberal Party. It's their daily bread. In fact, no one knew there were any culture wars or identity politics, and still they started talking about it. One thing that this modern evangelism does, it wears cool jeans, but it also wears fundamentalist hard right politics. So it doesn't have the fluffy. Christina Keneally's religiosity is as fluffy and benign and wholesome as you can get. These guys are often extremely anti-trans people, anti-gay people, anti-women in their views on the place of women. They look like they should be cool teachers, but they often espouse views that very hard right-wingers espouse. I thought this sat so wrong with me from the same speech. This made my skin crawl. It made me feel really uncomfortable. I've been in evacuation centres where people thought I was just giving someone a hug, and I was praying and putting my hands on people, laying hands on them and praying. Something about that strikes me so wrong. Something is so disrespectful. Something is so arrogant about that you would put yourself in that situation where someone is under the impression that you're just giving them a hug, but you're really laying your hands on them, praying inside. Isn't that lying to them in the most horrible way? What if their religion isn't the same as yours, or that offends their religion? I mean, that would make my skin crawl. I think that is so emblematic of Scott Morrison's notion of consent and the arrogance of his belief system. And I think his belief system is the biggest and most dangerous inversion of Christianity that you can possibly get. There are three major parts to what Scott Morrison, Hillsong, His Church, Horizon, the Pentecostals believe. That is crap if you're a Christian. Number one, Brian Houston wrote a book, I think it was called How to Make More Money, in the 90s. Something very similar to that title. They preach the prosperity doctrine. They talk about how Jesus wanted them to have lots of money. What a load of rubbish. This is the kind of religiosity where you use your religion to justify everything you want to do, not everything you should do. No one spoke more cleanly about the meek and the poor inheriting the earth and about how much he detested people that were wealthy than Jesus. And here they are saying Jesus wants them to have more money. Brian Houston talks about how they must shake off the shame of being poor. No one has ever tried to, until the modern era, tried to say that God wanted you to have a big bank account, mate. And they justify it through the Bible. They justify the acquisition of as much wealth and power. Something else that Jesus deliberately sought to eschew was having a position of power. He is the guy that rebelled against the churches of the day. He went smack in against organised religion and overturning the tables of the moneylenders. And here are the people saying, actually, he wants us to have as much gold as possible. I'm really getting that out of the Bible. How are you getting that out of the Bible? The other thing which they rarely talk about is the Seven Mountains Mandate. This is a central part of Pentecostal belief. And the Hillsong tribe call it Seven Spheres, but you can call it Seven Spheres or Seven Mountains Mandate. And it refers to 7 areas of human life that they seek to have power in. And one of them is government and the military. Another is education. Another is the media. They want to have elevated people in all of these areas. That has nothing to do with what Jesus sought. They seek power. They legitimately seek power. Look at the most religious Christians on earth. They're people who live in monasteries, who give up all their worldly possessions, who wouldn't say boo to a goose, who pray and do very chaste things and sleep on stone floors. You really imagine them going out there hawking themselves for cash on TV and telling everyone else how to live in the most intolerant way possible, and just seeking to have as much power for themselves as possible and claiming that that was from Jesus Christ. This is an inversion of Christianity. And the other one they've got prosperity doctrine, they've got the Seven Mountains Mandate, and they've got dominion theory. And dominion theory is the idea that because God gave Adam dominion over the earth, and it's their personal sect of Christianity being they, not the global Catholic sense, have God-given right to have dominion over everyone else and to convert everyone else to their way of thinking. This is not Christianity. This is far closer to Scientology. They don't make these things publicly available and they don't espouse them to their congregations that much. But these are the inner workings of the evangelical Pentecostal movement that Scott Morrison is subsumed in. The search for power and money and the pretense that that's doing God's work. And the idea that they have to have this level of power in things like the media and in education, in the military, which is a frightening one, and in government. And they're getting there. They are really getting there. But none of it has anything to do with Christianity. is a really bad group of people justifying some horrible behaviour and some terrible views by using Jesus to do so. And they're liars. Scott Morrison's a liar because he wouldn't ever come out and say any of this. And you can see how much of a liar he is because he pretends to be consoling someone while laying hands and praying on them like some creepy religious pervert. This is from the Lemonheads. Come on, Feel the Lemonheads. I think that was the sequel to It's a Shame About Ray. Fittingly, Big Gay Heart. A wonderful song.